You are listening to the Berry Thoughtful Life Coaching Podcast with the mindset coach, Kanisha Berry. You will be empowered, uplifted, and encouraged. Now, here's your host, Kanisha.
Hello, Berry Thoughtfuls. So one of my favorite books is a book called The Four Agreements. And I believe right now the author has written a second book called The Five Agreements, and I haven't read that one yet. But in the Four Agreements, the author tells us that there are four things that we can do to improve our life. Maybe another time I'll list all four, but right now the one I want to talk about is one thing he asks us, or he teaches us to agree on, is to agree not to make assumptions. The reason I clearly remember that one is because it is the agreement that stuck with me the most. So the idea of this agreement is that, one, we are often in agreement with ourselves about what we believe. And so when we make an assumption, we assume we understand something that we perhaps do not. The author encourages us, instead of making an assumption or creating a story about something that is happening, he tells us to get the courage to ask questions. So I remember just throughout my life, whenever something would happen, for instance, if I called a friend and they didn't return my phone call, or if I, supposed to meet with someone and they didn't show up, I will begin to tell the story in my own mind about why they didn't do what they said they would do. They just don't care. They don't love me. They must don't want to be my friend anymore. Like, my mind will begin to make up a story. That is what the author calls making an assumption. So instead of having the courage to just simply pick up the phone again and call and say, hey, I've called you 2 times. You haven't called me back. Is there something going on? We begin to create a story where they must don't want to talk to me. They don't want to be my friend. We create the story instead of asking the questions to learn the truth about the story. Now, perhaps they don't want to talk to you. That may not be why they're calling you back. But the truth of the matter is, until a person says that to you, you can't have full certainty about what it is that you are assuming. I know that sounds scary, to live in a world where you begin to choose not to assume what someone says. But actually, it's a pretty cool place to live. I just encourage you to get the book, because one of the things, the way the author explains it, is that we're all living in our own dream. Like, the thoughts in our mind. I'm having an experience that is so unique to me because of the way I think and the way I perceive the world. He calls that living in your own dream. Therefore, everything I do in life is geared towards the way I think and the way I believe life should be, the agreements that I have with myself in life. And so for me to impose my thoughts and my ideas on you or on someone else without asking them questions is to then assume that they share the same ideas, thoughts, and agreements about the world. Here's another example. My parents taught me that when I enter into a room, I am the person who's supposed to speak to those who are already in the room. Now, growing up, I really believed that to be a universal idea. Like, I thought every human being on the planet knew that that was how you're supposed to behave. So when I got a job working at a television station and would be in the break room, which was a pretty small room, and someone would enter into the break room and not say hello, I would build this whole story about how rude this person was and how maybe they didn't like me because they didn't say hello, and how dare they? What is wrong with these people? They don't have manners. Don't they know they're supposed to speak? I'm sitting right here. They're supposed to say hello to me. Interesting enough, I had a conversation with a coworker one day, and we was just chatting about different things we learned growing up, and I shared that thought and that belief. And he kind of laughed, and he's like, wow, I learned the very opposite thing. I learned that when you enter into the room, the person in the room is supposed to greet you. And I thought, wow, here I am building this whole story of defense against everyone who's ever come into the break room when I'm sitting there and I say hello. And what if they learn what my coworker learned? This is why not making assumptions are so important. Just because you think it and believe it doesn't make it true for everyone. And the only way you can begin to create better relationships is to ask those questions. Get bold enough to ask people, what did you mean when you said this? Why didn't you show up? Why didn't you call? Will you share with me your thoughts on this? So when we learn to stop making assumptions, it's like a freedom happens in our own heart and our mind. One, we stop holding grudges against people because you've built a whole story and you're holding them up to your standard of the way things should be. But you could just simply invite them into your world and say, hey, why do you do that? Give it a try. I think you will find it life-changing. And if you get a chance, get the book, The 4 Agreements. Or maybe go further than me and read the 5 Agreements. You will learn and find out that you can really shift and change your life just by shifting the way you think. Thank you so much for listening. I am Kenesha Berry. Make sure you go over to my website, berrythoughtfullife.com. Learn more about what I do as a life coach, as well as get my free ebook, Miracle Mindset, because it's all about the way you're thinking. And if you're a lady who are listening and you want to get connected with other women and learn more about how to renew your mind, live a life that glorifies God, move closer to your dreams, join our free Bible study. We're doing it every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to meeting with you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.